we'll go ahead and get started. And if you would, please just let us know who has joined us. If you just drop your name and maybe your college. And if you are so inclined to your role at the college, we'd love to see who's in the room with us. My name is Jennifer Hill Kelly, and I am a coach at Achieving the Dream. And I'm excited to be here with my colleague, Stephen Christopher, to talk a little bit about data. So let's get started. Stephen is joining us from Austin Community College, where he is the Associate Vice Chancellor of Student Accessibility and Social Support Resources. And he has quite a great story to share, and I'm so pleased he could join us today. So let's get started. So the why of why we do this work, we've heard this all day today, as we heard from Dr. Stout and the great presentation from the president of Columbus State. You know, there are many reasons that are compelling us to do this work. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of a data point to begin this conversation, that student parents are nearly twice as likely to leave college without a degree as students without children. We heard that throughout the day today, but even more compelling that these folks are really committed to going to school to better their lives for lots of reasons, as we have heard. So a part of our point of this session today is really to try to help you identify those adult learners who are also parents. And so I'm not going to go through this slide. I just want to kind of highlight from the work, some of the work that ATD has done. Austin was a participant in a parenting student opportunity assessment, where we tried to help colleges identify where to find information about adult learners, and specifically this parenting student population. So this is a resource. We are also going to put some resources in the chat for you all that came out of that pilot that we hope will be helpful. So with that, I want to turn the rest of the time over to Steve to let him tell the story of Austin.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Hey, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I know you had a little break here, and we're going to talk about not only data, but we're going to talk about culture too, that informs data. So I'm going to set this up real quickly. Let's go to the next slide. Achieving the Dream asked me for some compelling data. Well, I hope this is compelling here. Approximately 25% of today's college students are parenting students. At ACC, it's between 23 and 28% at any given time. Students with children accrue approximately 3 times the amount of educational debt as non-parenting students. And yet, as you saw before, they're twice as likely not to get a degree, or 10 times as likely not to earn a bachelor's degree within 5 years in comparison to their non-parenting peers. There's still research out there based on community college attendance, and that is being developed as we speak. I'm going to give you a little context before we go directly into the data. ACC has been serving primarily women who have children through a number of ways. We haven't identified it as student parents, but we started back in 1992 with the Women's Center. That started with the Perkins Grant, and how do we support women? And that Women's Center morphed into the Support Center in 1994, primarily focused on childcare, providing childcare scholarships or subsidies for childcare, and offering supportive counseling and referrals to community resources. In 2014, we developed a robust case management approach, and the Support Center morphed into what's called the Student Advocacy Center in 2018, where we did wraparound services and ta-da, student parent programming. That's where that language started to come in at ACC. Next slide. And so data in the beginning, all we had was support center program level data, a couple hundred students, and we also had Perkins single parent data, which single parents were part of the special populations group within Perkins. And the little icon there is me pulling my hair out because the college would ask me, so how many students have children? Well, heck if I know. I just got the one program data and some Perkins data points. Next slide. And as time goes on, we continue to triangulate to figure out how many parenting students we have at ACC. We have a robust student emergency fund. Many of those students are parenting students, and also our health science and nursing colleagues in the faculty positions. We're serving primarily women, and but yet we were caught in this triangulating and guessing really about how many total students we had. So that's me again pulling my hair out. Next slide. Well, we come up to 2015 to the present, and there are a series of both community and national initiatives. A lot of them were involved with workforce training. And as soon as you start talking about workforce training and underemployed people in the community, you're often talking about women, and particularly you're often talking about women with children. So childcare comes into the conversation. And within our community, they wanted to know what the childcare supply was. And there was a focus on quality of childcare. And our community and governmental partners, they wanted also the childcare information, but more importantly, they wanted the parent information. How big is the universe of people with young children that need childcare? All of those initiatives, and there were a number of them, pushed the college to move forward and figure out how we can better measure this. Next slide. But of course, there's challenges along the way. Challenges that I'm sure you all are familiar with. Technology. We are right now upgrading our ERP system to Workday, but we, up until now and for the next 2 years until we completely transition to Workday, we're using a 20th century product. And I don't mean that in a nice way. I mean that in like, you know, horse and buggy kind of thing. So technology is certainly a challenge. There's also entrenched interests that create a challenge for, well, why would anybody not want to know how many parenting students there are? Well, it's not that they don't want to know. It's about how do you go about gathering that data? So not only are there entrenched interests, there's entrenched policies at work here, especially in record keeping areas. And then there's also can be a lack of leadership imperative. Now, I don't want to imply, and I don't know anyone here to suggest that ACC's leadership it does not support this work. They absolutely do support this work. In fact, they're one of our biggest supporters. But at the time, we're talking about 2015 forward, there's a million priorities already on the plate, a million things that the college wants to do, that our chancellor wants to focus on, and this is another one. And so it takes a while to create this imperative and to bring student parents as a priority, as an institutional priority. One of the biggest challenges are we measure what we deem as important. And so until the college goes, this is important. These parenting students are really important. They're 25% of our whole entire student population. Once that is said, then we can move forward. Next slide. How do we do that? We make student parents important. You strive to create leadership, clarity, and momentum at the very highest level. That can happen both at people at my level, above and below, but it also comes from external influences. With ACC, a lot of it came from external influences. Our community was interested in improving our workforce profile. That included a lot of women, and especially low-income women. That included childcare, et cetera. So you can see that our leadership wanted to know more about our parenting students. You want to support upgrades in technology. Really, even those of us who are not technologists, like myself, I'm a humanist. I will totally support our technology colleagues and the tools that they need to do their work, especially during the budget season too. And you need to make those arguments that no, we need them to upgrade these tools so we can begin capturing the data that we need and help entrenched interests reframe their arguments about why we can't do this, why we shouldn't do this, and help reframe those arguments that create a drag on the culture change. I know we were talking about data, but we actually have to talk about culture change. We have to talk about not only being data informed, but data influenced and data directed institutions, which I think most of us have turned that corner and are. But here we're talking about very specific groups of data that are not tied directly to the classroom. And that's part of the culture change that we've worked hard on ACC, is to connect the information that lies outside of the classroom and say that this directly affects students' performance within the classroom. The more we know about our parenting students, the better able we will help them work through and achieve their educational goals. So it does come back to culture. Next slide, please. How do you do that? Well, at ACC, we used existing surveys and research and data. We participated in the SESI biannual surveys. We also got a great deal of information from the Hope Center's Real College surveys. And we also currently use the Noel Levitt's college student inventory, which I'll talk about in a minute there. Though that data creates an imperative for the college to look at its students, and especially its parenting students, in a different way. When you see that that as we speak DEI, we can see a group of students who are not performing at the level of all other students, and we have to explore that and find out what that is. To help you change the culture too, you want to identify allies. Specifically, you want your faculty groups. We have a couple faculty who I'm close with, who are doing dissertations or additional research beyond dissertations around families and around student parents. They're by nature interested in this work, and they are definitely allies that have direct links to other faculty. Your institutional research group, for sure you want to include them and get them interested in why this data is important, and get their buy-in to the vast amount of work, and again, reimagining how we collect this data. Again, not just classroom data. You want to look at affinity groups and perhaps student clubs. Some of you all may have student parent clubs or childcare clubs or things like that. So you want to use those as networks to gather the support and to gather the imperative that gathering this data is super important for the work that we do. You also want to leverage your community interest and community groups. We have a lot of interest across the Austin metro area about education and about helping low-income families and individuals improve their status. And we are a large and visible agency within the community. And so as we have connections with those outside community groups and interests, they push us to say, we need your buy-in. We need your support on the work that we're doing outside in the community. And so you leverage that interest and remain close to the interests of your community. Next slide. So where are we with data collection at ACC? Well, I will tell you, it's a work in progress. We do not have all the answers yet, but we do have key allies. Key allies include our board of trustees. Yes, surprisingly, our board of trustees are very interested first in childcare. That's been the flag that they've waved for the last 10 years, but that's morphing into how do we more broadly support our parenting students? We now have the attention of the chancellor and his cabinet. We have the attention of our institutional research department, of our student affairs professionals, and we are increasing our momentum among faculty. And their interest is that their students succeed in their class. And, you know, how come this student, stopped showing up? What's going on there? So the more that we get allies, the more momentum we create for the data collection, which is really the foundation of the work that we do. Next slide. So our current state, we are still triangulating, but we're triangulating with much larger data. We're getting closer, but we're not there yet. I'll just be perfectly transparent with that. We use FAFSA data, which is represents about 30% of all students. And that data tells us that 21 to 23% of students that complete the FAFSA have dependents under 18 years old. We are also just started a pilot project last summer with the Noel Levitt's College Student Inventory. We had over 1,700 responses. That group, 18% of the student respondents said they had dependents under the age of 18. The College Student Inventory is an attempt by Austin Community College to learn about the needs of students upon entry. So when they come to us, what do you need? Not once you're here and you have to go find it, or somebody may tell you. We want to know up front. And so what's nice about that, yes, I see it's a low number. By the way, in context, ACC has about 35,000 students enrolled every semester, 70,000 unique individuals over the year. So what does 1,700 represent? Well, I get it. It's a small subset, but if we start using this as a requirement for incoming students, we'll start hitting much larger percentages of those. Like I said, this was just a pilot. And then, of course, we've used college surveys. CESI respondents, 28% of them said that they were parenting students, and we use the Trellis Financial Wellness Survey. Trellis is a company, a Texas-based company that provides support for students in educational institutions. 29% of their survey respondents said they were parenting students with children under 18. So you see, we've got a range there from a low of 18% to a high of 29%. So we are still triangulating that data. Right now, we think we're between the 25 and 28% of it. Next slide, please. We're certainly not done. There's certainly way more to do. We're not happy that we don't have an exact amount of this population of students. So what's on the horizon? A new ERP, which I spoke about earlier, a Workday, that will help. We already have Salesforce and we use it in multiple different ways. And that will help us also measure the number of parenting students. I talked about this, the expansion, perhaps a requirement of the college student inventory for all incoming students would be truly awesome. And then, yeah, newsflash, spoiler alert, culture change, ongoing discussions about collecting data. Obviously, if you collect it at the application stage, you're going to capture everybody. Or when they register, you're going to capture everybody. Or at orientation, if that was a requirement, that would capture many students. So that is, that's where we're talking about entrenched interests and policies. The short version is the argument against finding that information out in application or registration is it becomes too many questions to ask students and becomes a barrier. That's the counter argument to why don't we just collect it at those points where we capture everybody. And that's an ongoing kind of thing. And that's where you work to reframe those arguments to help get allies in this work. Final slide here. And then this is, you'll get these slides at the end, but if you want to become a student parent friendly institution, you're going to want to look at your policy. Analyze your policies through a student parent lens. You'll obviously want to do data, which is what we're talking about right now. You'll want to work with the people, the staff, increase awareness, training, and understanding, and work on the culture that fosters a welcoming environment for student parents. Those are the writ large, the way that you can get to, without having to push your way through the data jungle, where people go, hey, we've got a good idea. Let's measure all the student parents that we have at our institution. Yeah, that's great. Let's move forward. And last slide. Any questions, comments, thoughts? Thank you so much. That was a whirlwind.
That was. Thank you, Steve, for sharing the Austin story. And I just want to kind of emphasize that that last kind of tip sheet of things that can help for parenting students can be applied to any kind of student group that we're talking about. And so kind of the way we built this session was, yes, we are focused on parenting students, but this applies to their adult learners. Have so many different kind of aspects of their life. Parenting students is one of them. And so this work, I think, can help us leverage what we're learning about working with parenting students to the whole entire adult population. So those four key kind of takeaway points, Stephen, that you shared, I think really are supported by the rubric we shared, which is of recommended practices. But you can't do anything unless you know how many students you have that may have those needs, right? And so that's really, like you said, the foundation of this work. And so we really encourage folks to think about and to talk to your institutional research folks if you have them. I know that we have a variety of schools on the line here. And so part of the work that we did with the data collection template is to help you all kind of think about what do we already know about our students and what would we like to know. And Stephen, I think your conversation about the surveys, that you're really trying to use different methods of trying to get to that, to answer that question. So I'm just curious about the challenges that you faced in trying to deal that and how you've overcome them to get to where you are today.
Well, I do want to say almost by definition, although not 100% of parenting students are adults. I mean, yes, there are some teens, and many of us have dual enrollment programs, and that is a special population unto itself. But the parenting students are almost all going to be adults, and so that is a portion of all your student learners. The surveys are. The college has really bought into participating in the surveys, although flip side is, yes, we can survey our students to death,
Right.
and
Right.
we don't want to do that. So we are being strategic about which surveys we engage in and the cadence to which we roll them out to students. But the SESI and the real college surveys in particular were focused, SESI focused on student services. Let me see, there's a question, specific sections regarding student parents.
Yes, I'll try to find those real quick and drop them in the chat for folks. But there was another question too there about adding demographic questions to the college application. Have you done some of that?
Yes, and therein lies the entrenched interests. So not only do we want to know about parenting students, many instructional areas want to know specific information about students that doesn't come through testing. There are many support areas that want to learn more about students. So what we get at is, or where we end up is, hey, you can't just ask about the parenting students because we want to ask these 10 other questions. And then you get into this conversation about, well, how many questions is too many before an applicant or somebody registering for classes goes, that's too much. I don't want to do it. You know, as I joke with my staff, I said, well, if I were king of the world, wink, 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 I mean, I could solve all this and, you know, we simply go on about it. However, we are a shared governance institution, and everybody's opinion is valuable, and it will take some time to add those questions to processes that everybody goes through.
Yeah, so I have information. The question about SESI, there were working with another college. There were several questions. There was about six questions related to providing care for dependents living with you, and there were 3 questions on childcare, and then a question on caring for dependents, and then children who also depend on you for their care in the SESI. And those are good. When you pull those out from your raw data, are good to compare with the other information you have about your students to try to help you big that picture. So I'll try to put those in the chat there. Let's see here.
There's a question, Jennifer and Stephen, that Stephen, you addressed this somewhat indirectly, but I wonder if you could speak to it directly. It says, does your institution share the data information with student services?
So repeat your question. What is the question?
It says, does your institution share the data information? I assume this is, you know, what's collected from your various data collection with student services.
Yeah, excellent question. It goes to a little bit of how Austin Community College is organized. We're one college with 11 campuses spread over the size of Connecticut, is what we say. So it's a huge service area, and I do, and other people do share that data with colleagues in their areas. Whether it is comprehensive sharing across the entire college, I would say probably not, but we have to do better in sharing those results. Now, they are available on the institutional research website, but that is a passive piece where somebody actively has to go and find that information. So, we live in a world where there is really too much to know at any one time. And so how do you elevate these results in a way that people, especially faculty, will remember them? And not especially faculty, but also our student affairs folks too. So it takes a village, and there's just so much to know about our students.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we have gone a minute into the next break. So thank you, Stephen, so much for sharing your time with us today. And we will see everybody in the final plenary session in about 4 minutes. Thank you, everybody. Take care.